Whenever you ask a One Piece fan which one they prefer out of the pre-time skip or post-time skip, they always go for the pre-time skip, and a lot of people do think that's down to nostalgia, but I don't believe so. Whenever we think about pre-time skip, we always think about the adventurous side of it, the side of where we don't know what's gonna happen next, but we all know we're gonna have a laugh wherever we go. Those things are what made One Piece in the pre-time skip, and a lot of people do believe that post-time skip has lost that flair. So in this video I'm going to be going over the pre-time skip of One Piece to see whether it's carried by as nostalgia or if it's really just that good. But before I get into the video, if you guys enjoy content like this, you know what to do, hit that like button and subscribe. Since I believe it's a win-win, you guys show support and I give it back to you guys in videos. Whether it's One Piece, other anime, or just fiction in general, in due time I'm going to cover it, so be there when I go there. But I feel like that's enough of my rambling, so let's get into the video and truly find out whether One Piece pre-time skip is carried by its nostalgia or if it's just really that good. Now before I get into the video, I will be having rules for this video because I will be ranking each arc and I will be giving you guys my personal opinions on the arc while we're going through the video. So number 1, I will be rating it depending on my enjoyment, the writing, and how obviously it sets up for the future. And then the second rule, if the arc is a part of a saga, so say for instance the build up to Alabasta, I'm going to include it as one, same as the East Blue. But obviously stuff like Impel Down, I will have it with Amazon Lily. I'm not going to split those up because they're like basically conjoined arcs, so that's what I'm going to do for those ones. But for the big arcs, I will have them by themselves unless they have like little mini arcs conjoined onto them. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So as we all know, One Piece starts off with the East Blue Saga, and it starts off with Luffy and Kobe meeting up. Now these first couple of chapters are pretty good. I wouldn't say they're the best out there, but there's stuff that grips you. I don't think there's anything spectacular here, but there isn't anything bad here, so I'm not going to say too much on it. But with saying that already, I do think there's something that Oda does that I really do like, and it's the little foreshadowing of who Zoro is. He puts it in there and you're like, oh okay, so they're going to look for the Zoro guy, I wonder who it is. And already Oda paints this sort of picture for you in your head about Zoro. You automatically think he's some sort of beast. And so with that being said, we now segue into Zoro's arc, and Zoro's arc is something that keeps you interested as well. I won't say there's anything that's like gripping to me. Like I think it was an okay arc. It keeps you there and it's not gonna make you like turn away and be like, nah, I don't like it. It's still something very good and it keeps you entertained. If you really want to be picky here, there are a few flaws that you can pick out, but I don't believe there are too many. And so with the first arc, it's alright, but then when we segue into Buggy's arc, I do have a few gripes with this arc, I'm not going to lie. When I first watched this and when I do reread it, I do believe that it's kind of slow to me. I don't know why, but I just feel like the arc, it doesn't mesh well with me. Like I just don't like the arc. I do understand that Buggy is a great antagonist later on, but like right here, I just found him very tedious to be around. And I do have the exact same thing with Syrup Village, but the thing with Syrup Village is the fact that I just find that arc horrendous, and I'm going to get into that. Syrup Village really does have every flaw Oda has on paper. Now don't get me wrong, there are a few great things here, but I do believe that there are a lot of things that he did wrong here that in the later arc, and I would even just say an arc after, he cleans it up quickly, and that is something that I love to see about Oda. And he just cleans up all of his stuff and makes sure everything's on point the very next arc, and it shows that he is evolving as a writer. I view Orange Town and the Syrup Village as like training grounds for Oda. I don't see them as any big grandiose arcs, I just see them as training arcs for Oda. That's just how I see them, at least. Yeah, Buggy and Kuro weren't very interesting to me. I know a lot of people do love Buggy, but I didn't find Buggy interesting until Impel Down, and that is something I want to talk about later. But yeah, for the most part, these were the weakest arcs in my opinion. But as if he did a full 180, Oda drops one of the best arcs in the series in my opinion, and that is Baratie. And everybody knows what happens in Baratie, but I'm still gonna cover it. I believe that Baratie was probably the arc where Oda found what he really wanted to do with One Piece, as when he included Sanji and started getting into Sanji stuff and had Zoro face off against Mihawk and just everything around the arc where then Nami then betrays them, I do believe that this was probably where Oda was like, okay, I know what I want to do with this series, so let's get going. Although I don't find Don Krieg as a gripping villain, I found everybody else in that arc very strong. The side characters were strong, Luffy was strong, everything there, the theme behind the arc and everything, I loved it. I've covered Baratie several times on this channel, but I'm going to go over it briefly here. What I love about Baratie so much is the fact that it emphasizes on chasing your goals, and that is something that I like to see in these type of stories, and it's something that I carry dear to me. Watching Sanji throw away his goals and try to repay a non-existent debt is something that I love, and that is something I always go back to Baratie for. Reading and watching the Zoro fight and watching him promise to Luffy that he'll never lose again is something that I love to see all the time. I know Orange Town does what I'm about to say, but I love the fact that it has a character that comes back later and is now pivotal to the story later. Among all the other great things about Baratie, one of the main things I love about it is Mihawk, and Mihawk is somebody that stands out in the arc, and it's kind of like, okay, if we want to go to that Grand Line, we need to watch out for people like him. Many shonen do not allow their main characters to lose early on in the story, but this is what I love about One Piece, as it shows us that they're not invincible, and this is a theme that comes back later. Now, during all that chaos, the Mary is stolen by Nami, and this is what leads us into Arlong Park. And originally, I did not like Nami for this, but as the story goes on, I do obviously soften up to her, but at the beginning I didn't. And before I even get into the arc, this is what I love about One Piece, is the fact that it flows. It's not a story where it stops, starts, stop, start, stop, start. No, it flows. And I do know that sometimes in the stories it is kind of like a stop and then start, but here it's very fluent and it feels like it's just a continuous stream. Now, Arlong Park, although Baratie did grip me, Arlong Park is where I said I have to catch up to this series, because when I saw all the things that was going on with Nami, and then when they gave us that beautiful scene, and I would say it's probably one of the more iconic scenes in anime now due to One Piece's rise in popularity, I had to just, it's something about this like scene that I was like, yeah, no, I had to catch up. I don't know what it is about Nami saying that she needed help and then Luffy being like, okay, cool, and then he just does this little funny pose. I don't know why nobody ever talks about this pose, but this pose is funny as hell. Like, what is he even doing here? But you have this pose and then you have all the straw hats roll up and you just have them looking cold, and then they roll into Arlong Park and they start scrapping it out. This is what I love about older pre-timeskip, because it's just very fluent and it just feels like, yeah, I can't wait for the showdowns to happen. The enjoyment of this arc was great, the writing was great, and the fact that Arlong isn't just a person that is like, oh, he's just mentioned here and never again. Arlong comes back later and he is very important later, and that is what I love. Whenever I talk about Arlong Park and Baratie, I just feel like they're perfect arcs to start a series off with, as they have everything you want. Rememberable moments, characters that reappear and have a lot of importance in the story later, and the enjoyment factor, well, we know how it is. And so now when we lead into Logtown, I do feel like Logtown was a bit slow, but I didn't mind it. I feel like you can have a slow arc after you just had two phenomenal arcs. And with that being said, I feel like I want to wrap up the East Blue and give it, I don't know, I'd say a 7.5 out of 10. The reason I'm not gonna give it a 9 or something, or even an 8, is because Orange Town exists, Village exists. I do believe that Logtown being a slower arc doesn't affect the score at all. That's what I expect. But the two in between arcs where you've got Orange Town and Syrup Village, they are one of the weaker arcs in One Piece. I'd say they're just the weakest arcs out of One Piece, and yeah, I just don't like them, so I'm gonna have to bump it down to a 7.5. But yeah, the East Blue Saga is a very great way to start your story off of. Another reason I do believe that Logtown does get a pass is because it does reintroduce Buggy, it introduces Smoker, and it introduces Dragon. These three characters are very pivotal to the story today, so yeah, it has to get a pass for that. Now, once the Straw Hats enter the Grand Line, they get into the Alabasta Saga. Now, I'm going to cover this as one whole saga. That means Drum Island, Little Garden, the Baroque Works Island, and then obviously Alabasta. Now, when I talked about fluidity before, this is what I talk about when I talk about fluidity. Everything in this saga is linked to each other. Even though each island may have its own little presence and whatnot, they have to go there for a certain reason, or just end up there for a certain reason. Even the characters that are introduced, or even just the places that are introduced, are very important to this day. Starting off with the Baroque Works Island, even though it's very short, I do believe that everything here was needed and it sets up everything perfectly. With Zoro going around terrorizing the people on the island, with then Vivi revealing herself and then basically saying she needs help, and then with the introduction of Robin, it really makes this mini arc stand out, and it makes it one of the more important arcs of the whole entire saga. And I know there's a bunch of people who's yelling, oh, you missed Laboon and all that. Don't worry, Laboon's in here. I'm just saving Laboon for later when we talk about Thriller Bark. But yeah, if you want to be chronological, yeah, we do start off with Laboon and then we go on to the Baroque Works Island, but I do want to start off with the Baroque Works Island and come back to Laboon later. And so following up on the Baroque Works Island, we do have Little Garden, and I do believe that Little Garden is probably a little bit slower paced, but I do like what happens here. Stuff like Sanji talking to Crocodile, Mr. 3 being there, and Dorian Brogy also basically revealing to us that Elbaf does exist, it expands on the growing story, and that is what I love about this arc. On top of all of that, it does give us one of the more controversial rivalries in the story, so yeah, this arc does everything to build up for the future. And it also gives Usopp something to strive toward. And so when we move on to Drum Island, I believe that it gives us one of the better concepts we've seen in the story. The concept of allowing your will to live on even if your body is dead is something that comes up time and time again in the series, and Wano really does utilize this. Luffy climbing a massive ass mountain for Nami and Sanji, like these things is what I love about the arc as well. The arc also introduces Wapol and Ace, and these two people are very integral to the story today. And so after all of that, we now end up in Alabasta, and Alabasta is probably one of the better arcs in Pre-Timeskip, and I know a lot of people do say that it's like, I know it's very hit or miss, but for me I really love it. If I was to list out everything I love about Alabasta, we'd be here for hours, but I'm just going to sum it up in a few things that I loved the most. I loved Vivi's role in this arc, and I loved how her and Luffy's argument was very important. Another thing I loved so much was how Crocodile did portray to us how corrupt the 7 warlords could truly be. It's really just a precursor of what's going to happen down the line, even if it's in Pre-Timeskip or Post-Timeskip. And so for this whole entire saga, the enjoyment was pretty good. Although there were a few low points, the low points weren't as bad as the East Blue, and the writing here was phenomenal, and the fact that characters do come back time and time again in the future, yeah, this arc was phenomenal. So I'll give the Alabasta Saga an 8.5 out of 10. And so next up is Jaya and Skypiea. Now I know a lot of people do have their gripes with these two arcs, and even I do. I do believe that Jaya was a really good arc, but Skypiea was, in the beginning I do believe it was a bit too slow. The writing of these two arcs were good, don't get me wrong, the writing here was phenomenal, but I just think that the pacing of it was a bit too slow, even in the manga for me. And that's mainly for Skypiea. Now don't get me wrong, as I just said, the writing for it was great, and the lore that we learned here was phenomenal. It just expands everything we know about One Piece. From them discovering that floating ship in the sky dropped into the sea, to them meeting Nolan's descendants, and just everything on Skypiea itself, the lore here was heavy and it was great. Everything here could be used in the future, and the fact that we found out there's more Skypiea islands, it just makes everything here feel more rewarding. And in my opinion, the way Luffy beats Enel was the best finisher in the series. I don't know why, I just feel like him ringing the bell, him jumping in the sky, then below seeing it, that was just beautiful. So I'm gonna wrap everything up now. The enjoyment was pretty good. I do feel like it's spoiled a bit by the slow pacing. I know this is something that everybody complains about with the arc, but once you can get past the pacing, it's not really too bad. The writing was great here, and with them reappearing later, I know it's in a ongoing cover story. I know it stops for a bit, but I do think he's gonna come back later. But with that being said, I don't know, I'd rate it like a 7.8, 8. I think it's better than the East Blue, mainly because of the lore and everything we got here, and the moments are, I don't know, I'd say the East Blue at its peak was better, but I feel like this is just better consistently, so I'll give it a 7.8 to an 8. Yeah, I think that's a fair rating. And so moving on, I'm talking about an arc I've never talked about before, and that is Long Ring Longland. Now this is probably going to be the shortest section of the video, as I do not like this arc at all. I think I like it a little bit better than Syrup Village and the other one, Orange Town, but nah, I'm sorry, this arc, I know people are gonna sue me for this because there are Sanji and Zoro moments, and there's like, I don't know, cool boxing, but I don't know, man, I just don't like it. I don't think there's anything reoccurring that happens here. I could be wrong and people could be slewing me in the comment section, but nah, I think that this arc is a solid 4. It's definitely, like, if you want to hold it by itself, aside from Syrup Village and Orange Town, it's definitely the weakest the arcs that I'm going to cover here. But yeah, I'm just going to move on from this because, like, I don't really like it. And so moving on to better news, let's move on to Water 7 and Enies Lobby. Now Water 7 and Enies Lobby may be the peak of the series to many people, and if they say that, I can't really bash them, as I do believe so as well. There's only one more stretch that can even match this, and it's Sabody into Amazon Lily into Impel Down into Marineford. And to be honest, you could just say from Water 7 up to Marineford, it's just one long stretch that is untouched, and I do believe that this one long stretch is probably the best stretch we've seen in manga, period. But before I get ahead of myself, let's just focus on Water 7 and Enies Lobby. Now Water 7 into Enies Lobby is very good, as they flow into each other, and everything you learn in Water 7 is then applied into Enies Lobby. Sabody. Even with how the Straw Hats interact with Robin and everything, I just think that this arc, or these two arcs, are phenomenal. The pacing in my eyes never really felt slow. The conflicts between them and Usopp was great. The way how Usopp came back and tried to act like he was somebody else was funny as well. The massive twist of Lucci and them being on the world government side and them being CP9 agents was great as well. The Straw Hats on the train was great. Sanji's little escapade throughout the whole train was great. Just everything overall with Robin saying she wants to live. You have so many iconic moments during this arc, and it's something that you can't top. Oda was truly in his bag when he was creating War 7 in Enies lobby, and the enjoyment throughout all of it was great. It was just everything from top to bottom is a 10 out of 10. Like, that is just all I need to say. Everything is a 10 out of 10. Everything that's shown and introduced here does come back later, even the main characters. Aokiji gives us a hint to what the admirals are truly like. We found out more about Luffy's family. The Ohara incident still makes waves to this day. Like, the Ohara incident is still relevant to this day. Everything that is shown here is extremely crucial to the story, and this is why this arc is just one of the best out there. And so following up on those amazing arcs, we have Thriller Bark, and in my opinion, I do believe that Thriller Bark is one of the more overhated arcs in the entire series. In my eyes, I view Thriller Bark as a cooldown arc, and it does it perfectly. Although a lot of things you could say like the pacing was a tiny bit bad, I do believe that all the writing here and everything that went on was great. I think what I love most about the arc is the fight against Oars and then what happens after it with Kuma showing up and whatnot, but I think everybody else thinks that the arc is terrible aside from like the Zoro moment, which I do believe is false. I think a lot of people hate on the arc mainly because it happens right after Water 7 and Enies lobby, and so it's like when you go from a clear 10 out of 10 down to like a 7 or an 8 out of 10, you're like, I don't know if I really like it. But trust me, Thriller Bark, if you read Thriller Bark today just with a clear mind, you will like it. Although I do have gripes with it, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's the best arc in One Piece, I'm saying it's the most overhated arc in One Piece. But yeah, I give Thriller Bark a 7.5 out of 10. I mean, it's good, like, don't get me wrong, it's a fun read. I think the one thing Thriller Bark does is it's fun, and I know Moria isn't the best villain, and he does come back later, and he is important later, and obviously you have Perona and whatnot, she's important later, but I think it's a relatively fun arc. I don't take the arc too seriously like a lot of people do, and I just think that it's just like a breather arc, and it's a good breather arc because it does introduce people like Brook, and Brook is a good Straw Hat. We have Brook's backstory, we also get stuff about Ryuma, we have stuff about Laboon, like stuff that gets introduced in this arc is very good, but I feel like a lot of people overlook it because of Enies lobby and Water 7, and I'd even say the arc that comes after it, Sabody, Impel Down, and then Marineford. So since we're here, let's talk about Sabody. One thing I love about Sabody is that it gives us the harsh realities of the One Piece world. From having these bubbly quests that, yeah, okay, there were a bit dark at times, but mostly they're bubbly, you then go to Sabody where there's slave trade here, and then you just have Luffy straight up losing. This is something that leaves a mark on the reader and Luffy himself, and it's kind of like, wow, what just happened? We're also introduced to other rookies, and there's a rookie out there that was doing more than Luffy, and that was Kid. We get to meet the right-hand man of the previous Pirate King. Like, a lot of things are shown here that I love. Overall, I'd say the arc is a 9.5 to 10 out of 10. Like, the arc is one of the best arcs in One Piece, and it doesn't really ever get slandered, and that's because it's great. It's one of the greater arcs in the whole entire series. Like, there's so many things I could delve into here, but as I said before, if I was to talk on it, we'd be here for hours. And so with that being said, let's segue into the last saga of the pre-timeskip, and that is the Marineford Saga. The Marineford Saga had Amazon Lily, Impel Down, and Marineford. Now, Amazon Lily was okay. Like, I know there's a few things that we like obviously it shows us that Ace has been captured and whatnot, and I actually forgot about all the things that happen in between, like in Thriller Bark and Water 7 and Enies lobby, where we see Shanks meet up with Whitebeard, we see Blackbeard versus Ace, and we have a few other things that happen in the background. Now, I could go over them, but if I did, I'll be here for hours, but I'm going to include them here since they are very pivotal here. And so I feel like Amazon Lily was like just a world building arc, and it just gives us more people to meet like Boa and whatnot, and then obviously it then segues into Impel Down because Ace has been captured by Blackbeard, and obviously he gave him to the world government, and the world government are like, cool, let's execute this guy. And so when we get into Impel Down, right, I feel like Impel Down is just one of the best arcs in One Piece. Now, I've said that a few times in this video, but I truly mean that when I say that. I believe Impel Down is the most underrated arc in the entire series, like, and that is just me being firm. Like, I don't believe there's a single arc that's more underrated than it. The characters it brings back, the emotions that it has, everything in this arc was perfect, and I just feel like there wasn't a better arc to bridge between Amazon Lily and Marineford, and it kind of just builds you up from Marineford. And so then when you get to Marineford, you get all these crazy battles, you get all these crazy reveals, like Roger being Ace's father and everything, and you have so many moving parts here. And then I feel like the whole saga of like Sabody all the way up until Marineford, it's really to show Luffy how dark the One Piece world is, and just how he is just one person within it. Like, everything is not gonna go his way, because obviously with the death of Ace, you then are like, wow, it really just set you back to like ground zero, and you're like, wow, okay, cool, wow, so like that just happened. And this is where Luffy needs to ground himself in reality and realize that there are people out there that are bigger and stronger than you. You can't just gum smash your way through everything that happens. You need to get yourself right before you enter that new world. And there were even more themes explored in Marineford, and we have Akainu and everything, we have all of his bad deeds and everything. Like, there were just so many things here. We get to see Garp, and this is where Garp takes that first step into be one of the greater written characters in the story. Just everything in Marineford, Impel Down, Amazon Lily, and even Sabody was just great. And with that being said, I'm going to top off the Amazon Lily, Impel Down, and Marineford saga with a good 10 out of 10. It was a 10 out of 10 saga, let's not lie. And as I said over and over again, if I were to delve into every theme covered in these like just 3 arcs, I'd be here for hours, but obviously this isn't the video for that. And so I really want to just end the video by recapping everything and just going over why Pre-Timeskip is not carried by nostalgia. The world building, the writing, the moments, just everything that happens in Pre-Timeskip is just phenomenal. And I feel like Oda was in his rhythm when he got up to Marineford, and many may say that he did drop off when he got to Fishman Island and whatnot, but I feel like when he got there he started to focus more on lore, and it was like the pacing slowed down, everything slowed down. But that is not where I want to, like, in this video I don't want to discuss that. I want to keep on track with Pre-Timeskip, and yeah, everything with Pre-Timeskip, as you heard from me in this video, it has its lows, but when Oda gets going, he gets going, and there's no stopping him. There has been one hiccup in the road, and that's Long Ring Longland, but nobody even really talks about that. It's just like a little stumbling block. That's like literally a cooldown arc after Skypiea. But aside from that, everything in Pre-Timeskip after the, I'll say even after Syrup Village, was top tier. Like, you could watch it and or read it and be enjoyed. Like, everything about it is fine. And so yeah, Pre-Timeskip is just that good. Like, it's not carried by nostalgia in my eyes. I do believe that nostalgia does boost up a few points, but with what One Piece is trying to achieve, adventure, comedy, fights and whatnot, Pre-Timeskip does it all, and it does it to a T. And how I personally feel about post-Timeskip, well, I'm not going to answer that here, but just know that, hey, look, if you want the video on it, just like and subscribe, you know, comment down below, say you want it, and you know, maybe I'll get around to doing it. With that being said, that's the video coming to an end. I did enjoy making this video because I recorded this video surprisingly fast. I thought this would be one of my longer videos. Well, it is one of my longer videos. I think it'll be one of my longer recording sessions, but because I have like I love Pre-Timeskip One Piece so much, I'm just able to just put on the mic and just say anything, and I know that I'll get it right with Pre-Timeskip One Piece because it's just so good. Yeah, if you guys want me to do in-depth reviews on like each like sort of saga in the One Piece Pre-Timeskip or even post-Timeskip, you know what to do, leave a comment down below and whatnot, you know. And if you disagree with me in any of my takes, like you think that Long Ring Longland was the best arc in Pre-Timeskip, then hey, look, listen, come find me about it, because I'm telling you right now it's not. But yeah, let me get off the mic before I make this video into like a 30-minute video, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not there ready for the 30-minute videos yet. Like listen, give it some time, maybe like next year, but like right now 30-minute videos here. Look, listen, most you're gonna get on me is 25 minutes. But yeah, I love you guys, love you for all the support, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.